So there are, well, at least 80,000 active, peer-reviewed academic journals publishing in English today. 80,000.
Yeah, depending on how you count them, that number might even be higher.
Right. And you could have, the most groundbreaking, paradigm-shifting data of the decade sitting right there on your hard drive.
Absolutely.
But if you send that manuscript to the wrong publication in that massive sea of options, I mean, it effectively ceases to exist.
It really does. It is, without a doubt, the ultimate bottleneck in modern science.
For sure.
I mean, you spend months, maybe even years at the bench. You endure the grueling data analysis. You fastidiously format every single reference survey.
References. The worst part.
Yeah, and you finally have a finished manuscript in your hand, but instead of relief, you're just hit with this wall of pure panic.
Because where do you even send it?
Exactly. The marketplace for academic knowledge has just never been more crowded or, honestly, more confusing.
Which is exactly why we're dedicating this deep dive to a truth that makes a lot of early career researchers incredibly uncomfortable.
It's a hard pill to swallow.
It is. But the thesis here, the core of our mission today, is that getting published successfully is exactly 50% great science and 50% strategic placement.
That's the reality of the game.
So we are going to look at the research, the tools, and the data provided in our sources to help you, the listener, build that strategy. We need to shift away from relying on blind luck because, well, the system is just far too complex for guesswork.
It really is. And to build a functional strategy, we actually have to start by reevaluating the one metric that almost every researcher already knows.
And completely obsesses over.
Right, the journal impact factor.
The infamous JF. I mean, we all know the tyranny of the impact factor.
Oh, absolutely.
It dictates university promotions, it completely influences who gets grant funding, and it basically serves as this shorthand for prestige.
It's the ultimate academic currency.
Yeah, but relying on it blindly is where a lot of researchers just immediately derail their own publication strategy.
Because they often completely misunderstand what it was actually designed to do.
Right.
Like Eugene Garfield developed the impact factor back in the 1960s for the Web of Science database. And at its core, it was originally meant to help librarians figure out which journals were worth buying subscriptions to.
Wait, really? It was for librarians?
Yeah. It was an administrative tool. It simply measures the average number of citations a journal's articles receive within a very, very strict 2-year window.
Okay, so it's just a snapshot of immediate relevance, basically, like a measure of how much noise a paper makes the literal second it hits the press.
Exactly. It captures the current conversation. But because it relies on that tight 2-year window, it heavily, heavily biases fast-moving fields.
Like immunology or genetics or something.
Right. Those fields might see rapid citation turnovers. But what if you are in mathematics or the humanities, where it might take, 3 or 4 years for a paper to be properly digested and cited by the community?
Then a 2-year window makes your field look artificially less impactful. Which is wild. And that actually explains why we are seeing alternative metrics gain traction in the sources.
Yeah, like Elsevier's Scopus database pushing their CiteScore metric.
Right, because Scopus uses a 4-year citation average instead of 2. So a 4-year window completely changes the math for those slower-moving fields.
It allows the true long-term value of a journal to actually reflect in its ranking, and that distinction is vital.
Because if you don't get that, you fall into a trap.
Exactly, the impact factor trap. Early career researchers often feel this immense pressure to shoot their shot at the absolute top of the mountain.
They just swing for the fences.
Yeah. They look at Nature, which boasts a J of over 64, or Cell, sitting at over 45, and then they submit their highly specialized, incredibly niche clinical case study.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because isn't the impact factor the ultimate academic currency for those grants and promotions? I mean, can you really blame an early career researcher for shooting their shot at Nature?
What's fascinating here is that the pressure is completely valid, but the execution is flawed. Because the result of that submission is almost always a 48-hour desk rejection.
Ouch.
Yeah. The editor of Nature takes one single glance, sees that the paper doesn't fit their mandate for broad general science appeal, and just kicks it right back.
So the researcher loses time, their morale takes a massive hit, and the science just sits there doing nothing.
Because they aimed for a number instead of an actual audience.
Right.
And this is where the strategic pivot happens. Instead of chasing a single towering metric, the literature overwhelmingly suggests building a tiered strategy.
So you have to prep this before you even draft a cover letter.
Exactly. You need to identify 3 separate tiers of target journals. Tier 1 is your reach category.
So these are the high impact factor dreams, where your work perfectly aligns with the current global conversation.
Right. So if everything goes perfectly and the editors are looking for exactly your methodology that week, you land there.
But you definitely don't bet the farm on it.
No, never
Yeah.
bet the farm. Because Tier 2 is your realistic category. These are the perfect fit journals.
Okay.
They are highly reputable in your specific subfield. The editorial board is actively publishing work just like yours, and you basically have a statistically high probability of acceptance.
And there's a third tier, right?
Yes, finally you establish Tier 3, which are your safety journals.
So maybe a lower impact factor.
Yeah, lower impact factor or maybe a narrower readership. But
Right.
they are fully indexed, peer-reviewed, and they offer really quick turnaround times.
So you essentially build a safety net for your research. But that brings us to the operational friction of this whole process.
Finding the actual fit.
Right. If we aren't just sorting a massive database by the highest impact factor to find that Tier 2 sweet spot, we actually have to figure out what these editors want to buy.
Which means you have to learn how to decode a journal's aims and scope.
The dreaded aims and scope page.
Yeah. Every legitimate journal publishes this document on their website. It essentially functions as their editorial manifesto.
But you can't just skim it for buzzwords.
No, not at all. You have to look for structural alignments in how they view science.
The big one that stands out in the source material is the divide between theoretical and applied research.
That's a huge one.
Like if you just spent 2 years doing a highly practical, messy field study on agricultural runoff, and you submit it to a journal whose aims and scope explicitly champions basic theoretical scientific modeling.
Instant mismatch. Desk rejection.
Right, or consider the scale of the research, regional versus global.
Yes. Does the editorial board prioritize massive international implications? Or do they specifically exist to champion localized regional case studies?
Which might be totally ignored by the massive global publishers. It's like showing up to a high-end steakhouse trying to sell them a brilliant, award-winning vegan recipe.
That is a perfect way to look at it.
I mean, it doesn't matter how good the science is, or the food, in this case. It's just the wrong menu. So what does this all mean for the researcher trying to find the right restaurant?
Well, reading through hundreds of aims and scope pages to find the right menu is agonizingly slow.
Nobody has time for that.
Yeah. So this is why veteran researchers rely on a technique called reverse searching.
Oh, this is the secret sauce.
It really is. Instead of looking outward at the 80,000 journals, you look inward. You open your own manuscript and you intensely analyze your own reference list.
So you're basically using your own bibliography as a heat map for where your audience already lives.
Exactly.
Like if I look at my citations and see that I've cited the Journal of Applied Physics 5 or 6 times to build my foundational argument, that editorial board is already hosting the conversation I'm trying to enter.
You are just tracing the breadcrumbs of your own methodology back to their source, and editors notice this.
They actually look at your references for their own journal.
Oh, for sure. When they see that a manuscript heavily relies on their previous issues, it proves the work is a direct continuation of their journal's ongoing dialogue. It validates their own impact.
Wow, that's smart. And if you apply that same logic laterally, you can unlock a ton of interdisciplinary outreach.
This is where it gets really fun.
Yeah. The sources highlighted this great example about a novel surgical approach to the thyroid. And like the immediate knee-jerk instinct for a surgeon is to only search within surgery journals.
Which is a highly saturated, incredibly competitive Tier 2 market.
Right. But if that surgeon broadens their perspective, they realize a new thyroid technique has massive downstream implications for, say, pathology.
Or internal medicine.
Or endocrinology, or even radiology. By simply shifting the angle of the pitch, you suddenly have 5 different medical disciplines that might want to publish your data.
It radically expands your options and readership. It completely changes the game.
But we also have to acknowledge the reality of modern research here. Even with reverse searching, manually cross-referencing bibliographies and reading manifestos, that could still take hours or weeks.
It is a massive time sink.
Which brings us to the AI matchmakers. Since we are essentially talking about parsing text, mapping citations, and matching keyword frequencies, This feels like exactly the kind of pattern recognition that artificial intelligence is built for.
And the publishing industry has absolutely embraced this. There are 3 leading AI-powered matchmaking tools in the literature that operate kind of like a GPS for your manuscript.
Okay, let's break them down.
So the first is JANE, which stands for the Journal Author Name Estimator.
Got it.
It was developed by the University of Innsbruck, and it is entirely free to use.
And from looking at the mechanics of Jane in the source material, it doesn't just do a simple keyword search, right?
No, it's way more advanced.
Okay.
You paste your title and abstract into the engine, and it uses semantic matching algorithms to compare your text against millions of documents inside PubMed Central.
So it's actually looking at the contextual relationships of your words, not just doing a basic CTLF to find them.
Exactly. That semantic matching makes it incredibly fast, and it is just a phenomenal tool for the biomedical sciences.
It even identifies potential peer reviewers, doesn't it?
It does, because it highlights authors who are actively publishing similar semantic concepts.
But since Jane is pulling its data entirely from PubMed Central, the glaring limitation has to be that it's virtually useless if you are outside biomed.
Right, a structural engineer isn't going to get much out of it.
Plus, PubMed aggregates a massive amount of data, so I'd imagine low-quality journals can sometimes sneak into the results.
They absolutely can. Jane lacks official impact factors on its dashboard, which makes vetting a bit tricky.
That's a little scary.
It is, but the developers have recently implemented a tagging system to help. The algorithm now flags journals that are officially indexed in Medline or listed in the DOAJ, the Directory of Open Access Journals.
Okay, so those tags act as a crucial quality control filter to help you weed out the junk.
Exactly. But if we move outside of biomed and look at the heavy hitters, the Elsevier Journal Finder seems to be the true powerhouse of the group.
Oh yeah, it's a massive piece of infrastructure. The Elsevier tool is directly backed by their Scopus database, which gives it access to over 40,000 active journals across virtually every discipline.
The analytics it provides are incredibly dense. You aren't just getting a name. You get authentic JIF and CiteScore data.
You can filter by open access preferences, right?
Yep, and you get hard data on historical acceptance rates and publication speed.
It also gives you the exact article processing charges, or APCs, right up front, so you know exactly what it will cost before you even submit. But here's where it gets really interesting.
Oh boy, here it comes.
If I plug my abstract into Elsevier's proprietary tool, aren't they naturally biased to just funnel my research into their own Elsevier publications? Isn't that a massive conflict of interest?
This raises an important question, and the short answer is yes. It absolutely is biased. And the same goes for the third major tool, the Springer Suggester.
Which queries roughly 3,000 Springer Nature journals.
Right. Springer's tool is fantastic for STEM fields, and it's free and highly transparent about processing times, but it operates entirely within a walled garden.
Right. Springer will suggest Springer journals. Elsevier will suggest Elsevier journals.
So if you are trying to find the absolute best objective home for your paper, relying on just one of these corporate tools is dangerous.
Which is why the ultimate best practice outlined in the literature is triangulation.
Yes, you use all 3.
So you take your abstract and you run it through Jane, then you run it through Elsevier, and then through Springer.
You basically force the algorithms to compete.
Exactly. If a very specific subfield continually pops up across all 3 isolated platforms, you now have highly objective confidence that your paper is a conceptual fit.
You outsmart the algorithm by using all the algorithms.
But if we are using AI to optimize our search speed, we really have to talk about the dark side of this.
The predator.
Yeah, because if I'm moving super fast, couldn't a scam publisher just game the SEO and intercept my research?
That is exactly what is happening right now, and it brings us to the most dangerous element of the modern publication game, the explosion of predatory publishing.
We're talking about highly sophisticated parasitic entities, right? They exist solely to exploit the publish or perish anxiety of early career researchers.
That's their entire business model. They hijack the open access model.
By charging those exorbitant article processing charges anywhere from $500 to $3,000.
While completely faking the peer review process. I mean, open access was designed to democratize science by making papers free to read, shifting the cost to the author.
Right, which makes sense in theory.
But predatory publishers realize they could just collect the fee, completely skip the expensive, time-consuming peer review infrastructure, and just upload the researcher's PDF to a sketchy website.
It sounds exactly like getting an email from a prince promising you millions.
I know.
It's basically an academic phishing scam, but they are preying on the desperation of researchers who just need to publish.
And their tactics are remarkably deceptive.
What should people watch out for?
Well, unsolicited, highly flattering, spammy emails. They will compliment a paper you presented at a conference 3 years ago and aggressively ask you to submit a 500-word short communication for an upcoming special issue.
Right, because real editorial boards at reputable journals are far too busy drowning in submissions to cold email a junior researcher begging for a 500-word essay.
Precisely. Other major red flags include guaranteed or just impossibly rapid acceptance times.
Like getting accepted in 3 days.
Right. Legitimate peer review requires coordinating multiple independent experts. It mechanically cannot happen in a week.
And what about their websites?
Oh, you need to heavily scrutinize them. Grammatically poor websites, vague editorial boards that don't list affiliations, and a total lack of a retraction policy are massive warning signs.
So how does a researcher systematically defend themselves against this?
By relying on established verification frameworks, the most prominent defense is the Think, Check, Submit initiative.
Which is supported by DOAJ and COPE, right?
Yes, the Committee on Publication Ethics. COPE sets the global ethical standards for peer review, so if a journal isn't adhering to their guidelines, run away.
You can also cross-reference the publisher with Beall's list to track potential predatory entities.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, falling for this doesn't just cost money.
Oh, it severely damages your academic reputation.
Because peers and grant review boards will view the work as unchecked and fundamentally unscientific. You cannot buy credibility in science.
And once your name is associated with a predatory publisher, it is incredibly difficult to wash that off.
It really is.
Okay, assuming we have successfully navigated this minefield, we've dodged the predators, triangulated our Tier 2 target using AI, and validated our choice by reverse searching our references, we finally arrive at the execution phase.
Sticking the landing.
Exactly. And looking at the source material, the actual submission process seems to be where a shocking number of brilliant scientists look like complete amateurs.
Because they treat the administrative execution as an afterthought. And the most common point of failure is the cover letter.
I mean, the instinct is to just paste the abstract into a Word document, type, "Please find attached," and hit send.
Which is a catastrophic missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Editors are overwhelmed. Your cover letter is a targeted, active sales pitch. You need to address the specific editor by name.
Show them you actually know who they are.
Exactly. You must explicitly highlight the gap in the current literature that you are filling. And crucially, you have to explicitly state why their specific readership will care.
You have to spoon-feed them the why, prove to them that you read their aims and scope.
Yes, and that level of administrative precision must extend into the reference list as well. The sources emphasize two major technical details that editors really scrutinize.
Okay, what are they?
First, the absolute necessity of using DOIs, or digital object identifiers, instead of standard URL links.
Right, because mechanically, a DOI is a permanent machine-readable code. It anchors your citation. A URL, on the other hand, is super fragile.
Yeah, a journal updates their website architecture, domain shift, and suddenly your citation leads to a 404 error, breaking the chain of scientific evidence.
Okay, and the second detail?
Verifying the chronological issue and volume numbers for every single paper you cite.
Now, I have to push back here on behalf of the listener.
Okay, go for it.
Does an editor actually care if I miss an issue number or use a URL instead of a DOI? That seems incredibly pedantic when the scientific data is what actually matters.
It feels pedantic until you view it from the perspective of the reviewer.
How so?
Well, administrative errors, broken links, and sloppy citations are massive behavioral red flags. They signal a lack of overall scientific rigor and care.
So if a researcher couldn't be bothered to accurately record the volume number of the paper they base their hypothesis on?
How can the reviewer trust that they accurately calibrated their lab equipment? Sloppiness on the page implies sloppiness at the bench.
Wow. That is a harsh reality, but it makes absolute logical sense.
It does. And to prevent that kind of sloppiness, the source material actually provides a highly structured 4-step workflow developed by librarians and nurse educators.
Just a quick summary of it. Step 1, clarify manuscript characteristics. Know your audience and format.
Step 2, shortlist 5 to 8 targets via those AI tools we talked about.
Step 3, evaluate and track in a spreadsheet. Keep tabs on those acceptance rates and APCs.
And step 4, formulate the tiered hierarchy.
Assign them to your reach, realistic, and safety list. So you're executing a verified plan, not just guessing.
You transition from being a passive participant hoping to get noticed to an active player strategically shaping the conversation.
And that completely redefines the 50-50 rule we started with. By understanding impact metrics, utilizing AI, vetting with think, check, submit, and crafting a great pitch, you transition your career from luck to strategy.
Ensuring your hard work actually reaches the global audience it deserves.
Absolutely. But, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Yeah.
If getting published successfully is truly 50% great science and 50% strategic placement, it really makes you wonder, throughout the entire history of science, how many brilliant paradigm-shifting discoveries have been completely lost to time, simply because the researcher didn't know how to play the publication game.
It's a pretty sobering thought.
It is. So don't let your research be lost to time. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep researching, and most importantly, publish with confidence.